Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for Tuesday, April the 2nd, 2024. I'll remind you to do what I'm doing and check your mobile devices. Be sure they're on silent mode. And remind you, if you come to the lectern to speak today, please activate the microphone so we can hear you and get a good reporting of our meeting today. That brings us to item number 2, approval of agenda. Gentlemen, got a couple things to make note of. We have removed the closed session for today. We've added the proclamation declaring April as Child Abuse Prevention Month to the consent agenda, number 18. And then with those two changes, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I vote we approve the amendments to the agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. All those in favor indicate with uplifted hand. 5-0. Have several presentations today. We'll begin first of all with recognition of Kathy Bailey, President of UNC Health Blue Ridge. This is a placeholder, and I think Kathy's not with us, I presume, today, but we're certainly be glad to recognize her and her service to our community at our regular meeting, and as she prepares for the next venture in her life as she steps away from Blue Ridge UNC. And we'll take time to recognize her in our meeting. Questions, comments on that item? Seeing and hearing none, without objection, that item will remain on the agenda. Lake James Litter Cleanup Report. This will come today from Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Howard Morgan, and possibly some of the members of the Lake James Area Wildlife and Nature Society will be here at our regular meeting to give a report on the amount of litter collected during their recent cleanup.
All right. Any questions on this item? All right. This item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 3 comes from our county manager, recognition of animal services employees for certificates completion. And appreciate Mr. Glines filling in for our county manager today. As most of you may know, Brian had some surgery a week or so ago, and he's still recovering a bit, a little bit immobile at this point, and we're wishing him well. Things are going well for him, and we do appreciate Alan stepping in today. So, Alan.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, members of the public. We're happy to recognize animal services staff who've completed certificate programs in management leadership and also executive leadership. And so at our meeting on the 16th, we'll welcome Elizabeth Guffey. She's the Animal Services Coordinator who's completed the Management Leadership Certification, and Caitlin Settemeyer, our Director, who's completed the Executive Leadership for recognition.
All right. Thank you, Alan. We look forward to recognizing those folks. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, this item will remain on the presentation agenda. Item 4, we have several scheduled public hearings this month. First one will come from Community Development, Zoning Text Amendment ZTA 2024-01, and public hearing. And this will bring Alan back to the podium. Mr. Glines.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Britton, commissioners, and members of the public. As you know, in North Carolina, a city or county can only operate within the regulations and powers provided by the state legislature, and this is known as Dillon's Rule. We're a Dillon's Rule state, and so local governments can only exercise powers expressly granted by state law. Prior to 2020, all the land use regulations for North Carolina counties were found in a section called 153A. There was a parallel section for cities and towns, and that was known as 160A. Over many years, the intent of those land use regulations was to be similar or the same, but over time, a change would be made for one corresponding county section that wouldn't be made in the corresponding city section, so things kind of got out of whack. As an effort to kind of clean this up, beginning around 2015, there was a push across North Carolina to come up with one amended land use plan. And that was a task force made up of attorneys, legislators, planners, faculty from the planning schools across the state. And then by 2020, they'd come up with a new a land use regulation called 160D. And they gave cities and counties until January 1st, 2021 to get that kind of solidified. So during that period of time of getting up to January 1st, 2021, a lot of communities and counties were rewriting their codes like crazy. It was a busy time for planners in the communities around North Carolina. In Burke County, the community development staff worked with the planning board and eventually brought a rewrite to the Board of Commissioners. That was in the spring of 2021. So 160D provides the outline for making and determining land use decisions in North Carolina. Specifically, 160D 703 provides for zoning regulations. There are 5 options for different types of zoning available, and Burke County is only utilizing 2 of the 5 options provided in 160D 703. Through this text amendment, staff would like for the Board of Commissioners to have more tools in the zoning toolbox to consider for land use decisions at appropriate instances from time to time. So all zoning activities are reviewed by the Board of Commissioners, and this is managed through a legislative review and approval process, meaning it comes through a public hearing process and is voted, sort of simple vote by the Board of Commissioners. Right now, we only use conventional zoning and overlays. And so this text amendment would be for conditional zoning, which is a new zoning tool for us that would include customized conditions that are tied to a specific property through a rezoning application. The actual land uses proposed on a site can be limited and specified through conditional zoning. The property owner, through their application, would submit either a specific site development plan with that's linked to a development proposal, or a list of development conditions for that parcel that would apply to future development uses and plans. So this is what makes this different from conventional zoning, which is what we use today. By contrast, conventional zoning does not allow customized conditions or limitations on the uses specific to a parcel. This means that all uses allowed in the zoning table are available to the parcel or similarly zoned parcels. In addition, only general development standards can be required as found in the zoning ordinance that apply to similar uses all the same. While conditional zoning would be available to all areas of Burke County, the staff begin that review for conditional zoning on from an application by the owner. So it's an application by application basis, considered one at a time, brought to the Board of Commissioners. The conditions placed on a specific parcel and use require a nexus or rough proportionality intended to manage the potential impacts that may come with a proposed development at a specific location. That's the key of conditional zoning. The proposal and conditions are also reviewed for concurrence with adopted community plans that are applicable. And this is, in our example, probably the Blueprint Burke plan that we've adopted as a comprehensive plan. We'll review it and consider it against that. The Board of Commissioners must approve the conditions, and the conditions must also be consented to by the property owner. So it's a kind of a work back and forth with a potential property owner developer who would seek to have a conditional zoning applied to their property. Further, the Board of Commissioners would only include those kind of conditions or requirements that are allowed by applicable law. So, but other things may not be permitted, such as special fees or taxes, unless they're consented to by that property owner, the petitioner. And although conventional zoning is expected to be the more typical zoning tool that we'll use here in Burke County, conditional zoning would be a useful tool for the board and might be reserved for those unusual zoning requests that are where special conditions are appropriate. The notification between, notification requirements for conditional zoning is the same as we do for all zoning. We do a lot of notice for the planning board meeting, and we also notice for the Board of Commissioner public hearing. So we do all the same process for that. Now, we've provided in the packet, we have the proposed text amendment for your consideration. And we also included a few sections and pages from 160D, the 703 notification reference, and 160D 604 for the planning board process. So we've got that information in there. But I'll have more of a presentation at our meeting on the 16th, but I'd be available to answer any questions right now if you have any for me.
All right, any questions for Alan on this item? So Alan, as I understand it, conditional zoning, if approved, would be available to any owner that come in the office for any project, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, whatever it might be.
Yes, sir.
That they would have that option, that they could go down the traditional path that would give them all the options that are in that zoning area that they would be requesting, or they could come forward with a conditional zoning request that then would allow the planning board and the board commission to look at those specific requests.
That's right, that's right. So on a case-by-case basis, someone could request that conditional zoning application to make it a good fit. If there was community concerns about impacts or other things for that area or property specifically.
Any other questions, Scott?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, a couple of things that, we, on the heels of our budget planning retreat that we just had, one of the things that really jumped out to us is we have an extreme need for housing. And I think, as I said here today, I would welcome any opportunity to put a new tool in our toolbox to help alleviate that. And going through some numbers, looking at Opportunity Youth, for example, the number of folks that are 16 to 24 that are disconnected, Burke County is exceptionally high. I think we rank 96 out of 100 counties. So any tool that, in my opinion, that we can add to that toolbox that will give us flexibility to not only address Opportunity Youth, but child poverty, looking at the number of people that commute out of the county to go to work. I mean, we've got some significant challenges, and any tool that we could have to help address those challenges. Am I on the right track here?
I think you are. I know a lot of communities use this to for housing purposes. They'll have a conditional zone property to try to address any environmental concerns, but also address that the developer needs to try to get additional housing approved for their community. So,
what's our minimum lot size requirement currently for a residential home in the county? Is it half acre?
it'll be a little more than that. It depends on if you have water and sewer, and then you have, if you have water and sewer, you get a little bit of a break, but it depends on the zoning classification. But with conditional zoning, you could flex that more so than staff could do it on our own. And it's not necessarily hardship, but it might meet our goals for smaller lot sizes in areas where we really want additional density, and we can serve it sufficiently through safety, fire safety, access, water, sewer, those kind of needs.
Mr. Chairman, one other question for you, Alan. So counties that have zoning, there's some counties it's the Wild West and they don't. So the ones that do the vast majority have conditional use implemented, and especially in our particular geographic area?
We have quite a few neighboring counties that have utilized conditional zoning, and that would be Caldwell, Cleveland, Catawba, Lincoln, for sure. So McDowell is a little bit of a mixed bag with zoning anyway, and I haven't checked Rutherford, but we're going to try to do a little more research on all those neighboring counties and what they're doing for land use management. But it's a tool in the toolbox that I think would be a benefit for the Board of Commissioners to have on hand to consider on a case-by-case basis.
And if you go to the School of Government's website and read everything that's there, I think first thing you're going to realize that there's detailed legal requirements when you use conditional zoning. There's no way to get around it. It is preset what's right and what's wrong. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir.
Other comments, questions? All right, thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 2 comes from Community Development Zoning. Come on back, Alan. Don't leave us yet. Amendment ZMA 2024-01 in public hearing.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tim Newton, Lake James Marina, they're requesting a rezoning of a single tract of land. This is conventional zoning, of course. He'd like to take that zoning from residential 1, R1, to general business. And of course, he has the marina property right next door to this tract of land, and he'd like to be able to utilize that existing historic structure on the property for office and other uses. So that's the request. We haven't heard any concerns from the community out there, and so we'd like to bring this to you as a public hearing resolution ordinance at our formal meeting.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any question for Alan on this item?
I'd like to make one comment. That was nothing but an eyesore. I drive by that, Tim knows, like every weekend. I appreciate the fact that he spent the money that he spent, which is a ton of money, to try to make that particular part of the community better looking than what it is. And I just can't, I think it's a win-win for him to get the zoning that he needs to prepare for that, the work that he wants to do there.
Thank you.
Other question or comment? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 3, Community Development Zoning Map ZMA Amendment 2024-02. Again, presented by Mr. Burns.
It happened that everything lined up for this meeting. This is a rezoning request brought to you by the Community Development Office. Recently, we had a rezoning in this area next to the cabinet shop, and the owner of the cabinet shop was willing to try to sell that land, 5 acres, to his neighbor. It was zoned industrial, and when we looked at that tract and neighboring tracts, we made a mental note that we should probably come back and consider just sort of cleaning up the zoning out there. This is a site up there at North Carolina 18 US 64 heading out of the county to the north. And the properties, there's quite a number of them. A couple of them are real small slivers, but they were all in the common ownership back in the early days, and they were all zoned industrial. But the owner has the cabinet shop. He has all the room he needs right now for developing and utilizing his property, and he's interested in selling off the rest, sold off other properties, and so we're just trying to take the industrial zoning out and change it all to residential 3. So that's the request, and that's what we'd be bringing forward later this month.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any questions, comments on this item?
Alan, are these tracts large enough for building homes on?
I believe there's a few that won't be, but they could be recombined with their neighbors to be utilized for residential purposes. I noticed at least 3 are probably a little small, but some of the owners weren't even aware that their property was zoned industrial, to be honest. So they bought them over the years, and things were subdivided in a slow fashion, and now they would like for it to be consistent with the proposed land use, which is residential for them.
Other question, comment? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 4, Community Development, Jonas Ridge Cranberry Bog Park Master Plan Partif Grant. Again, comes from Mr. Glines.
I will use the slides that we've attached, which include the Cranberry Bog Master Plan. So I came here in 2021 as your planning director, and the community here, Burke County Commissioners, had already been working for several years to purchase property at Jonas Ridge for the purpose of preserving and making a park out of this cranberry bog. And I noted that In 2019, activity was underway to attach that property and develop it. So with a partnership with Foothills Conservancy in Burke County, we acquired about 20 acres over several purchase periods up at Jonas Ridge. The front 3 acres is going to be the new convenience site that's under construction right now. And the property in the back, about 17 acres, is a highly significant, it's a high elevation Southern Appalachian mountain bog that has many wetland species, including native cranberry plants. It was farmland, but it still has high ecological values. These are some existing photos of the bog area. It's really beautiful up there. The county began working with Equinox Environmental and McGill Associates to develop planning for that 20-acre property, 2 different phases. And now we're at the phase where the Cranberry Bog Park has got a master plan. We do have an old house on the site as well. And the plans themselves, I believe there's a few more slides here. Okay, maybe not, maybe. Okay. Oh, here's the plans. Okay, if you can go back to the first slide. There's going to be a series of trails in the park area, in the new park area, and we want to utilize some boardwalks and other things to cross over the bog or the wetland areas so people can see it, experience it, but it won't damage the bog itself. We do have some dry meadow areas where we want to make a more or less ADA accessible or recreation accessible walking path so people up there can have a nice walking path, take their dog on a leash. The plan would have a proposed small dog park, picnic tables, and other activities up there. And on the plan itself, there is a older home that we had some analysis done. Could it be saved? It's an old rock stone house. That was the family home back in the day, and they believe there's an opportunity to renovate that for the first time ever, a Jonas Ridge meeting space, something for the community to meet in with restrooms up there and some storage. So meadow areas there, dog walking, dog park. Dogs can be off leash in the dog park area. That's how that works. And then these the trail areas would be a combination of natural surface trail and some paved and boardwalk areas, depending on the easement and concern, care and concern about the land itself. Next slide, please. Okay. And then through the wetlands, we're thinking of the boardwalk. The middle option there would be probably what we would focus on and use composite material for our decking, so it's got that recycling kind of match up with our goals for the whole convenience site and recycling there as well. So next slide. And there'll be park furniture, probably using composite benches, composite material benches. And next slide, please. Same with tables. There'll be areas for picnicking and that sort of thing. I think it'd be really nice for the residents in that community. And next slide, please. Other opportunities are special features. There would be kind of a viewing platform in the middle of a wetland area. There's some standing water at different times of the year, and you can see a whole variety of different animal, birds, and that sort of thing. So several areas of viewing platform. That next slide is that they're demonstrating a bird blind where you can stand and see the birds, but they can't see you. And there's an idea for a pavilion and other features on the property. So we're real excited about those opportunities. This slide shows how you could utilize that house. It has a nice terrace around the front. It's a stone building, and there would be space in there to have a lobby, restroom facilities, and a meeting room that would probably handle about 20 people in a community meeting. It's not the biggest space, but it would be a really welcome opportunity up there to have a meeting space for Jonas Ridge. They did include sort of an estimate of what it might take to renovate that structure. The Part F grant part of this, Parks and Recreation Trust Fund has a call for applications, and it's been a few years since Burke County has supplied an application for Part F, but we'd like to do that with this park. We think it's a good fit for Part F because it's a new facility and it's in an area of the county that we have few services now in that regard for parks. We do have match money in the budget already in our CIP that was set up last year, and this would augment that. So Part F works 50-50. Whatever you spend 50-50, you can spend up to half their money if you're successful in your application. So we'd like to have that. What we'd be proposing on the 16th is we have a resolution of support from the Board of Commissioners and approving the master plan. Any questions I can answer for you?
Right, thank you, Alan. Any questions for Alan on this item?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. This brings us to item number 5, consent agenda. We have a number of items on consent. First one comes from the clerk, appointment to LEPC, seat number 11.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to remove Lisa Prope's name from the official roster for the LEPC for seat number 11 representing media. She has decided not to reapply, and to appoint Marty Queen from the paper to fill that vacancy to complete an unexpired term ending January 31st, 2027.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Just for clarification,
Local Emergency Planning Committee.
I was about to say that. Thank you very much. Any question about that? All right, here and seeing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 2, also from the clerk, Rutherford College PBBOAETJ appointments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to appoint 2 members to the Rutherford College Planning Board and Board of Adjustment for the ETJ, which is Extraterritorial Jurisdiction. Seat number 1 is the regular, has been occupied by Mr. Eichard, and Mr. Van Horn is the alternate, who's in seat 2. Both members have served since 2014 and are willing to serve another term if you'll have them. And that term would end December 15th, 2026, the remainder of an unexpired term.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any question on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 3, also from the clerk, reappointments to the Park and Recreation Commission. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The terms of appointment for the following members of the Parks and Recreation Commission ended March 31st. Nikki Costello, representing Forest Hill; Sandy Clark, Glen Alpin; Valerie Mullis, George Hildebrand; Chris Newton, W.A. Young; and Scott Bollinger from Mull. All members except Ms. Mullis and Mr. Newton desire reappointment for new 3-year terms ending March 31st, 2027. Their removals are requested, along with the appointment of Rose Cook, representing George Hildebrand. We have received Ms. Cook's application. The terms end March 31st, the remainder of 3-year terms ending March 31st, 2027.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any question on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 4, also presented by the clerk, approval of amendments to Council on Aging bylaws. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Council on Aging has requested some amendments to their bylaws, particularly Article 4 meetings, Article 5 officers, and Article 7 committees. With regard to meetings, they want to reduce their meetings from 10 to 4, which also then they want to change Section 1 of Article 5 officers, that they will elect a majority of their officers at the 4th meeting of the year. And then in Article 7 committees, they want to say that the committee will present a slate of officers for the coming year at the 4th meeting. You can see the strike-through text there. So some minor changes to basically reduce their meetings from 10 to 4 times per year. And this is how all the other Council on Agings are set up in the area.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Item number 5 comes from our county manager, approval of budget amendment number 8 for $75,000. And Alan will tell us about that.
Okay, we're asking to set up a budget amendment. This is training funds from the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, and this is state training funds to cover flood disaster response training through the state. There are no local funding matches required on this one, and the total amount is $75,000.
All right, thank you, Alan. Just give me some clarification, or maybe Margaret, why do we have 2 lines here on this item? What did I miss?
One for revenue, one for expense.
I see it now, thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 6, approval of budget amendment number 9, $75,000. Again, Alan.
Well, thank you. Burke County received notification through the COG, Western Piedmont Council of Governments, that the Dogwood Health Trust Institute for Emerging Issues had supplied a $75,000 grant focused on digital access planning for Burke County. So this would set up that money in a line item so that we can appropriate and spend for this grant. There's no local funds required for this.
All right. Any question on this item?
Do you know what we're going to do to make the digital access plan better?
Well, this is,
75,000?
yeah, this is for smaller projects that would expand, opportunity and to access digital planning. So I know, for example, the senior center, they'd like a series of laptops, iPads, and other devices to help train up senior citizens who utilize the convenience center, that kind of thing. I mean the senior center to get additional skills for digital access. It's one of the proposals.
Question?
Mr. Glines, does this come with any strings attached? Like, will we have to do something as a county to get this money?
We do not. There are, we would just submit, I guess, general proposals for what the proposal would be, and that would have to be approved through the grant, but otherwise there's no real strings to it. Like we had to line up, I believe, per senior center, that kind of thing, what we were planning to do with it, how we're going to utilize the money, and it's over a 2-year cycle for spending that money, I believe.
Other question, comment? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 7, from our county manager, proclamation declaring May 2nd as National Day of Prayer. Alan.
Thank you. Very old tradition for having a National Day of Prayer, and so this would be a proclamation declaring May 2nd as the National Day of Prayer in Burke County.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any questions, comment on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 8, project ordinance for 201 Avery Avenue, again coming from the manager, and Alan, we'll hear from you.
Okay, what we have with this is a project ordinance. This is to cover the revenues and expenses for 201 Avery Avenue. That's the property across the street. That was the florist shop. This will be used by our Social Services Department for adult protective services there. The money included in this project fund includes the purchase price, which has already been purchased, and then just renovation and furnishing that facility, which is underway.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any question on this item? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 9, proclamation declaring April 18th, 2024 as Lyman Appreciation Day. And this will be presented by Robin Nicholson at our regular meeting, but today I will just make note of that proclamation or that Yes, proclamation in your package recognizing Lineman Appreciation Day. And since I work with a lot of those guys, I will can certainly understand why all of us need to have a great deal of appreciation for what they do. Most of them, in fact, all of them respond in most difficult circumstances all the time. They, when your power is off, they are on, and they gladly come to work and work for us, regardless of who they work for, whether it be Duke Energy or our cities or the electric cooperatives. So that would be a proclamation in honor of those guys. Any questions on that item? Mr. Burns has an attachment to a lineman as well.
Yeah, I just, to kind of reiterate what you said, when most people are evacuating or hunkering down, these folks are putting their boots on and they're headed to the storm. And often they get there ahead of it and have to sit through it and wait. I remember a few years ago, my son was stationed in Florence, waiting on Florence. They were at a convention center sleeping on army cots for 3 days. Then he spent the next 2 days sleeping on the hood of the truck. There was nowhere to be. So what these guys go through and what they do is just unreal. I appreciate every one of them. He's actually on his way to upstate New York right now responding to storm damage.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Any other questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if it's okay, can we move that to a presentation since Ms. Nicholson will be here at the regular meeting?
That would be the best, yes.
Thank you.
Everybody okay with moving item 9 to presentation? And I do think Robin intends to be here, is that correct? Yes. All right, everybody good with that? All right, thank you. Item number 10 comes from Finance. Canoe Creek Restoration Grant Bid, $200,000 and budget amendment. This will be presented by Michael Gaffney. Come on up, Michael.
Hey, Commissioners, good to see you all. So this budget amendment is related to the Canoe Creek Restoration Project, and just as a quick reminder, this is happening out at Oak Hill Community Park and Forest, which is run by Foothills Conservancy and has been open to the public since October. We've been very happy to see that the public has really embraced the park and gone to use it a lot, so it's been very, good to see for Foothills. The restoration project on Canoe Creek is trying to fix a fairly impaired stream with relatively significant amounts of soil erosion, and that's all getting put into the Catawba River. So this is really an effort to clean up that stream and make it as pristine and usable as possible for everyone in the county. The budget amendment we have here is related to one of the grants that is going to support the stream restoration project. We received a $200,000 grant through the Department of Environmental Quality, and that grant funding is passing through Burke County to Foothills and then eventually to the engineering firm that we've hired to run the restoration project. So this budget amendment is really just for a pass-through amount of money. No county funds will be spent on this project, and the amendment is on here, I think, in particular because we have gone through our RFQ process for this, and we have decided to hire Wildlands Engineering, a very well-known, well-regarded firm in North Carolina for stream restoration projects. And I think we're seeking consent to go into the bidding process or the contracting process with them after this.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this item?
So if I understand correctly, we're just going to serve as the fiscal agent.
Yes, that's
We're going
that's
to hold
exactly
the
right.
funds and disperse the funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
And remind the public how many feet of stream restoration you're going to be doing?
It's about 2,000 feet of linear
2,000
stream.
feet.
And this is phase 1 of the project. Phase 2 will do another 2,000 feet. And we will also be restoring a wetland there that will be open to the public.
Will that bring
eventually.
it down to the bridge?
Yes, that'll be close to that area, yes.
Okay, because I was going to say, I'm through there all the time. I think it's badly in need.
Yeah.
And, we can't control that other area across the street, but, we can control what we can control. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Y'all do a good job.
Thank you.
Any other question or comment? All right, thank you very much. Without objection, this item will remain on consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Item number 11 from Finance, applications for public school building capital funds. This will come from our Finance Director, Deputy County Manager, Margaret. Afternoon, Margaret.
Good afternoon. You've got two applications. One is for the one we've done annually to use lottery funds as part of the debt service process. That's for $821,000, and it does require approval for us to turn it in and draw down the money from the state by both boards. The other is for a new funding source the state has provided through the lottery funds, and it's called Building Repair and Renovation Funds. We have approximately $1 million available right now after about 1.5 years of those funds being built up, and these are going to be used for a large HVAC project at Freedom High School by the schools. And again, it requires approval by both boards so that we can pull down the state money and use theirs instead of ours.
Thank you very much. Any question on this item? All right, thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Without objection, this item will remain on consent agenda. Item number 12 comes from our Fire Marshal, request for approval of written agreement between Home Trust Bank and Triple Community Fire Department. This will be presented by Mike Willis and Chief Josh Smith and Triple Board Member Deborah Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Seems like Home Trust Bank has got the best insurance, or the best lending rate that there is, and that's why and they just happen to be the only one that requires the board to sign a letter of saying that they're in good standing with us. So Triple's getting ready to buy a new truck, and they went with that best rate, and they're here to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions on this item?
Can you tell us what kind of truck? Pumper, tanker, brush truck? Just curious.
Good afternoon. It's going to be replacing a 33-year-old engine, and so we're purchasing a new engine to replace that one.
I've been hearing from some of my fire pals that the price of this equipment is quite different than what it used to be a couple of years ago. Can you just so the board might have some idea what kind of magnitude of where we are and where we've come from? Can you tell us that?
So in 2016, we bought a new engine to replace one that was approximately 30 years old, and it was $450,000. This truck here is $760-some thousand, so it's almost doubled.
What's the delivery on that truck?
For this one, 2 years.
A year.
Yes, sir.
Questions, comments? All right. Hopefully you get it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 13 comes health and opioid, the RFQ vendor selection videography. This will be a placeholder presented by Katie. Afternoon, Katie.
How are you guys? So I have before you the request for proposals that we submitted. This was in response to the strategy that you all approved for a qualitative research project using videography as the medium. So this RFP opened on February 29th and closed on March 21st. We had 6 bids ranging from $15,000 to $52,500. And with the county's procurement process for RFPs, we go with the lowest vendor, the lowest estimate, if the vendor meets the qualifications. So the lowest bid on this was for $15,000 from EW Visions LLC, and they are a videography company based in Florida. And so the scope of work would be to recruit individuals for the interview portion of this, do the videography over the course of a couple of days, and then process it. So the entire project is estimated to take about 6 weeks. And then we would have this qualitative research project to inform our strategic plan from insights from people with lived experience. So that's the overall vision for doing this project. And so with this, I'd like to request your permission to contract with this company, EW Visions, for this project.
Thank you, Katie. Any questions on this item for Katie? Seeing here and none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Dr. Martindale. Item number 14, health opioid RFQ vendor selection for a strategic plan, also coming from Dr. Vonado. Carry on.
And this RFQ that we released was in response to another strategy that was authorized for the collaborative strategic planning process, to contract with a consulting group to help us finalize our local long-term spending plan. So we received 6 bids for this project. And I'd like to, instead of making a recommendation, I'd like to actually request that this item be moved to next month's agenda so that the opioid settlement work group has plenty of time to review all the bids and make recommendations.
All right, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Any question on this item? We will request them to move item 14 to our May agenda. Any concerns with that? All right, here and none, we'll move this
Thank you.
item to our May consent. Thank you, Katie. Item number 15, Public Health Month Proclamation, presented by Miranda Smith, Public Health Educator. Afternoon.
Good afternoon. So this is just a request to declare April as Public Health Month.
All right, any question on this item? You have that proclamation in your package. Seeing here and now, we'll leave this on consent agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 16, Tax Department Release Refund Report for March 2024. This comes from Mr. Bridgers, our tax administrator. Afternoon, John.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, tax refund, release and refund report. The total report was $31,217.27. Of that, $24,667.26 was rebilled for a net release of $6,550.01. There were no refunds. For the VTFs, or motor vehicles, the refunds were over $100, was $946.58.
All right, thank you, John. Any questions from John on the tax release refund report? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 17, Tax Department Tax Collection Report for March 2024. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The property tax amount collected year to date is $52,499,546.75%. That is 96.62% of the budget amount, leaving us with a balance to collect of $230.25. Motor vehicle tax, year to date, we've collected $4,104,054. That is 66.19% of the budget amount, leaving us with a balance to collect of $2,095,999.46. Current year taxes, we have collected year to date $56,603,547.29. That is 96.1% of the budget amount, leaving us with a balance to collect of $2,296,079.71. Delinquent taxes, year to date, we have collected $571,331.74. That is 81.62 of the budget amount, and leaving us with a balance to collect of $128,668.26. Penalties and interest, we have collected year to date $347,280.73. That is 105% of the budget, 105.56% of the budget amount. And so we are over collected on those penalties, $18,280.73. For the overall tax levy is $53,733,740.04. We have collected $52,499,546.75, which is 97.52% of the budget amount there, or of the total levy, leaving us a balance to collect of $1,664,193.29.
All right, thank you, John. Any questions for John on the tax collection report? See and hear none, this item will remain on consent agenda. Thank you, John. Item number 18, proclamation declaring April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. This will be presented by Amy Jackson Kincaid, the Program Supervisor for District 36, Guardian Ad Litem Division. Good afternoon, Amy.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for this time. Whitney Houston sang once that she believed children are our future. So that's why I'm here today to ask you on behalf of the Guardian Ad Litem program, Burke County DSS, and all of those who serve abused and neglected children to declare April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month.
All right, thank you very much. Gentlemen, you've got that proclamation in front of you. Take just a moment to take a look at it. Certainly, our department and the Guardian Ad Litem program works a lot to help our young kids who are in this situation. We thank you very much for what you guys do, and I'm sure we're happy to approve this proclamation. Any question on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on consent agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Kind of brings us now to item number 6, clerk resolution establishing the Burke County American 250th Planning Committee. This will be presented by Kay Drone, clerk to the board, and Dr. Bryant Lindsay, Dr. Linda Lindsay, and Robert Patton.
Yeah, I brought backup.
I see all of that here today. Appreciate you guys being here. Madam Clerk.
In 2026, America will celebrate its 250th birthday in preparation for the semi-quincentennial. Say that 5 times fast. Dr. Linda Lindsay and Dr. Bryant Lindsay have participated in the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources America 250 planning meetings since they began several years ago. Local grant funds are available during FY 2023-24 and 24-25 to underwrite cost of local commemorative events and programming. One type of grant is available exclusively to official county committees during FY 23-24. But to access the grant funding, you got to have an official America 250 committee. And you have to approve an authorizing resolution to create that committee. In your packet is a list of 13 names and 3 TDB, to be determined slots that were proposed by these fine folks. And they represent a wide variety of interests that would bring a wealth of knowledge to planning for these type of events. And we've included 2 at-large seats for citizens, particularly for minorities. And we're still waiting from the City of Morganton to get a name from a city council person. So this is a placeholder for the regular meeting. I have just given part of that top in 1-year, 2-year, 3-year terms, and went down the list. I'm happy to change that if that's not acceptable. The resolution is in your packets, fairly short, but basically creates the committee. And also in your packet is a planning document, a planning guide for the 250th anniversary celebration. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have. Or if not, I'll refer to one of my esteemed colleagues.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions on this item? See it here none. This item will remain on the decision agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would note in my reading of the planning guide, I did not see that these funds might be available to us because, as you know, Burke County was established in 1777, but I don't think we can tap into those monies for any type of that celebration.
Okay. All
But I'll
right.
keep looking.
Keep looking. Got confidence in you, Kay. Item number 2 comes from our HR Policy Modernization Phase 1. This will be presented by Joe Loops, HR Project Policy Manager. Good afternoon, Joe.
That's the presentation. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Joe Lutz, for those of you who haven't met me. I'm the new HR Policy and Project Manager, so glad to be a new member of the team here and my first time presenting to you. Apologize for the technical difficulties. Here we go. So this is phase 1 of our policy modernization program, and this is kind of a quick overview of what it is that we're about here, how this ties into your strategic goals, and a little bit of the process of how we want to try to move forward with the rest of our policies as we go through the rest of this year. Next slide, please. Just as a point of reference, these items represent the 5 focus areas of strategic areas that you gentlemen have identified for 2023-2024. Number 5 there is being employer of choice. Next slide, please. Some of the operating objectives that align with being employer of choice are the compensation and classification study. You've seen presentations from Baker Tilly, I think at the budget retreat, an interim report on how that's going. Our policies have to support those 2 studies. There will be more on that coming later this summer. We have identified as a strategic objective to apply for substantial equivalency with the Office of State Human Resources. The 2 departments that we have that they call competitive departments, the Health Department and the Department of Social Services, all HR services basically run through that office in Raleigh. If we obtain substantial equivalency, it gives us the ability to assist our folks here in Burke County with our own HR department. We can speed up the process. There are 2 folks in the OSHA office who make decisions about every position that's offered. You can imagine for all of the whole state of North Carolina, it takes a while for them to make a decision. This would make it much faster and give us the ability to move a lot quicker. I think you're familiar with that, but just so we're on the same page. In modernization of HR policies and procedures, this is to give us, put us on the line with best practices, to provide more empowerment and culture defining and less control focused. If you will, a little bit less of thou shalt not and a little bit more of this is how we do it. Reduce risk. If we are making sure that we're in compliance and that we're up to date on all employment law from the state and from the federal government, that reduces risk and it provides clarity. Gives us a clear mission, vision, and expectations, and makes us a little more focused on what we're going to do to serve the citizens of Burke County. Next slide, please.
Joe, before you go from there, just one question. Who at the Office of State is going to give us that certification? Where does that come from?
Actually, it goes through the local government. That gentleman's name is Dominic Derasimus. Sorry, I'm badly butchering his name. He's the head of the Department for Local Governments. They will review our submission, and then they send that to the State Human Resources Commission, and that body actually makes the decision to grant us the certification. But they do it based on whatever advice they get from Dominic Derasmo in his office.
And so basically what we're trying to do is align our positions so that they align with the state positions, and thusly they will grant us that.
Yes, sir. Substantial equivalency comes from North Carolina statute. I think it's chapter 126, and it says that if a local government establishes a personnel system that is substantially equivalent to the one that OSHA creates based off of state statute, then we can have permission to administer certain areas in our own county without having to ask permission, so to speak, from, we still follow the law, that doesn't change, but, you know, we don't have to go through that process with OSHA.
Now, I would just comment for the board's information, over the years, I've observed how slow that process has been, particularly as it relates to DSS. It can be weeks and months just waiting on them to approve a hire. And when you're already way behind, that's extremely negative. So hopefully that can happen.
Very well said, sir.
Okay, can I ask one quick question?
Yes.
So what will this do to the alignment of the local government retirement system and the state retirement system? Right now, they're interchangeable. Will any of these policies affect or more align, or?
I don't know the answer to that. I'll find that out and get back to you. I don't think, my sense is that it won't change that relationship, but I'll double check that and get that answer back to you, to the commissioner for the next meeting. There are a couple policy areas that we have sort of fast tracked, and that's because they underpin the substantial equivalency initiative of current Burke County policy, personnel policies. Article 4, which is the recruitment and employment section. That's how we do the hiring. Article 2 is classification plan. That's what jobs are responsible for, what their duties are, and their relative weight to other jobs in the system. And then Article 3, which is wage and salary administration, and that's how each grade is going to get paid. Articles 2 and 3, we're still working with Baker Tilly, and that is forthcoming. But we're starting today with recruitment and employment, and this is how we go through our processes of recruiting and selecting folks. All these are critical to underpin substantial equivalency. They're critical to underpin the compensation and classification plan. They'll make us more competitive. They'll reset the playing field and align our jobs so that they're better balanced in terms of department to department across the county. We'll take advantage of the changes that you have made for the employees of Burke County. That we've increased some benefits and done some things that make us more attractive to prospective employees, and this gives us the opportunity to take advantage of that faster. As Commissioner Britton said, when you're waiting 3 weeks to get an answer on somebody, they've been hired by another county. So that helps make us much more able to react much more quickly. And it will aid in retention. A well-staffed and well-compensated workforce is a better workforce and a happier workforce. Next slide, please. So today our first revision is with Article 4. That's the recruitment and employment of current Burke County personnel policies. This is in your packet. That article, just that article is reproduced in your packet. And our proposed policy, which will replace that, hopefully, is the recruiting, selection, and advancement policy. You also have a full copy of that in your packet. Rather than bore you with 8 pages worth of policy, I want to try to sort of boil that down into 2 sections. One is philosophy and kind of what are the main changes from our current policy. So philosophy, the idea here is that we want to professionally define all of our jobs. We want to base that on required education, experience, knowledge, skills, abilities, on the objective assessment of the job. Then we take that description, that understanding of what the job's supposed to do and what we need it to do. We use that job to advertise, to search for, to select, and hire people to do those jobs. We do it in a way that's lawful, a way that's fair, a way that makes sure that the county is hiring from the very best candidates we can find anywhere for each job that we have. and we also will be encouraging development and promotion of internal staff. That's kind of our overarching philosophy. That's a lot of $12 words right there to say what we want to do is to find the very best person for each job that's open. That's the philosophy. Next slide, please. So where are the major differences? Our proposed policy establishes a preference for recruiting externally and internally for all vacant positions. Our current policy guides us to recruit internally more often than not. That's a decision that the state has made to try to create advancement, internal advancement. It's a good idea. It makes a lot of good sense, but we've done a lot to make us a better employer in this area, and we need to take advantage. So that means we need to cast the net wide, make sure that we're looking at all candidates. If there's an internal candidate who is the best candidate, just like in baseball, the tie goes to the runner, we'll hire the known person if they're the best or equal to any candidate that we have. But the idea is we don't want to close the opportunity to attract the best minds from other surrounding counties. It charges HR with developing and administering consistent professional staffing practices. It stipulates pre-planning and purposeful execution of staffing tasks and selection methods. Centralizes HR as an integral partner in staffing of all departments, complies with equal employment opportunity, and hopefully it'll meet with OSHA standards and put us in position to be granted that certification. We hired a consultant. You gentlemen, I'm sure, approved the budget resolution sometime last year. We hired Drake Maynard, who's the former director for employment relations of OSHA, and he has been advising us on the language of this particular policy with the idea that somebody who used to help write these will make us do a better job, and hopefully we get the job done till we get our substantial equivalency certification. Next slide, please.
Joe, let me go back to
Yes, sir.
professional staffing practices. You said the tie goes to the runner. Do we have anything in place to make sure that our runner can get to second base instead of first base?
Sorry, again, sir?
You said the tie went to the runner.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any practices already in Burke County so that our runner can get to second base instead of first base and we don't have to go outside?
Are you asking me, is that our current policy?
Let me back up. I said, do we have any policies in place that takes care of that person that's already here so that he won't be tying with somebody from the outside? What are we doing to make sure that our people internally can advance?
I understand.
Yes, sir.
Under OSHA language and in our proposed policy, if it's deemed by the HR director that the best interest of the county is served by doing internal recruiting first because of professional development or whatever else. Example would be the sheriff's department. It's hard to hire a major from outside of our department. They have to work their way up. Similar situation to DSS. DSS is DSS is DSS, but each county has a little bit of a different take on the way it does things, and it takes time to get there. So there are situations in which it makes sense to encourage internal candidates. But
we have policies in place that people inside the county gets trained so that they can advance.
Gets trained, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
We're
Part
good.
of the classification pay study that we're doing, we're going to institute a thing called career ladders or natural progression. It gives you a pathway to learn more and grow and be more valuable to the citizens of Burke County and to your department within your own position, so that there are policies in place, and there's more coming, that will substantiate that as we move forward. This sort of is to move up a little bit from the 3,000 foot up to the 10,000 foot level and talk a little bit about the revision process, how we think reviewing policies ought to go. Basically, there are 4 phases. There's the update phase. This is where you look at what you have, you look at what you need to have, you change what needs to be changed, you look at things that are problematic, and you basically write or revise a policy. That's the update stage. The next stage will be the review stage. That's where you're sharing, here's the proposed draft with the organization. This is where we think we're going. What kind of feedback does it cause problems, et cetera. That'll be shared with employees, department heads, legal counsel, and the county manager, obviously. We move into the third stage, which is where we are on this policy today, which is approved. That's sharing the draft policy with the commission, the board of commissioners, and hopefully getting your approval of the policy. And then once you've approved the policy, it goes into implementation. So that's sort of just the basics of how we see that process rolling out. We're fast tracking again a couple of these policies because we have other things on our agenda that need to be done before we get all the policies done. Next slide, please. We talked a little bit about the process of how this is the stakeholder groups. These are the people who are involved or have a stake in the game. The steering committee for the policy rewrite is the Human Resources Subcommittee. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The second level is the leadership focus group. This is all the department heads, the county executive leadership, the directors, the elected officials, the sheriff, the register of deeds, the director of board elections, all those folks who make up the department heads group. That's the leadership of all of our 29 departments. They're sort of the first line of review that we have. And then we're proposing, we don't have these set up yet, but we're proposing employee listening groups. There'll be 3 of those. Each group will be 6 to 10 people, half of them from the administration departments, half from the service departments. Each group will get the same agenda. They'll discuss the same sort of things. We'll consolidate all that feedback. This makes it a little bit easier for me. It's easier to get 6 to 10 people to sit down and discuss something as complicated as a policy about smoking in the county or smoking in county buildings as it is to try to get 30 people to sit down and have one discussion about that. But this is to make sure that we get more employee buy-in and more employee feedback on what's going on. Local counsel, obviously the board's attorney, and then specialized outside employment counsel will review. And then you, gentlemen, the Board of Commissioners, are the last of the stakeholders until we get to the citizens. Next slide, please. Current members of the Human Resources Subcommittee, I just did jobs here. I didn't put their names. County manager, the deputy county manager, finance director, HR director, register of deeds, county social services director, parks and recreation director, assistant HR director, budgetary strategy and performance analyst, and then myself, the HR project and policy manager. HR subcommittee basically will touch on everything that has to do with human capital in the organization. That's what our purview is. Next slide, please. These are some things that we're working on now. Obviously, recruitment policy, we're coming to you with that today. Compensation and classification studies, as you know, are underway. Substantial equivalency. Some other things that are on the radar: performance evaluations and management, Family Medical Leave Act and the Fair Labor Standards Act, regulatory compliance, Munis, which is our finance and HR and payroll system, getting upgrades for more functionality and better reporting and analysis from that, development of key performance indicators for human capital, for example, turnover, voluntary turnover versus involuntary separations, how many people went through the grievance process, wellness and benefits initiatives, new hire orientation. We want to try to define culture, explain expectations, and impart values. Again, less thou shalt not do and more this is how we do. Vertical integration, one team, service is our purpose. Use HR as a partner to help all the departments as much as possible. Employer of choice, obviously that's an ongoing commitment. It's not a one and done. That's a mindset that we have to constantly keep in the forefront and make sure we're doing the right things. And then overall policy revision and update. Those are some things that you'll be seeing more coming out of the HR subcommittee and out of HR over the coming months, things that we're looking at. And other items jump up from all the time. Next slide, please. You have any questions about any or all of that?
Any questions for Joe on this item?
Next slide, please. Then the request is to approve the recruiting, selecting, and advancement policy as presented in your packet, and also to approve the resolution, which is asking the State Human Resources Commission to certify that we are substantially equivalent to their policies in the area of recruitment. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Joe. Any questions?
Just one quick question. So earlier you referenced local government. I'm assuming you're talking about the local government commission?
Sorry?
Are you referencing local government commission earlier when you said this would go through the local government?
It's the local government division of the Office of State Human Resources.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Joe. This item will remain on the decision agenda. Item number 7, reports. We'll hear a health bi-monthly opioid update from Dr. Lauren Doe.
Hello again. So the purpose of this report is to keep you all abreast of what's going on with the opioid settlement, strategic planning process and projects, as well as the strategies that you all have already approved. So a lot of this will be very familiar to what was presented at the budget retreat and what I presented 2 months ago. So this will be standing bi-monthly updates to you so I can keep you informed about how these priorities are going and give you some outcome indicators. So do you all have the presentation in front of you? Okay. So the first item is the regional planning update. You all approved contracting with the Fletcher Group to do this project. We are currently waiting on a modification from our Dogwood grant that funds the project to make the timeline match the proposed scope of work that Fletcher submitted. So we have the approval on that. We're just waiting for the final contract to come through for the grant modification, and then we'll be able to move forward with the contract with the Fletcher Group. So this project will, according to the scope of work, last until next summer, with the culmination in a regional formalized partnership where we can assess our recovery assets and inventory as a region and make a long-term plan as well to address the gaps and opportunities that we see from this evaluation. So the approved strategies, my favorite one, myself. This is a list of some of my regular responsibilities, what my day-to-day looks like. Facilitation of the opioid settlement work group, overdose fatality review, and peers partnering for excellence meetings, grant planning and writing, strategic planning coordination, RFQ management, oversight and implementation of approved strategies. And then last month, we represented Burke County at the National Overdose Fatality Review Forum, and Danny, Dr. Frank, and Michelle Mathis from Olive Branch represented Burke County at the Public Health Leaders Conference and talked about the work that we were doing. It was really well received. I've had several people reach out requesting more information, so we're really making an impact across the state. Also, this past month, I attended a state-wide project managers meeting hosted by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. So they convened all of the substance use opioid settlement project managers to a day-long meeting for networking, to share what each county is doing. So I'm proud to be able to represent Burke County there as well. Our naloxone distribution project. We actually just got approved for a grant from Healthy Blue, Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, for $12,500 for a naloxone vending machine. And Partners Health Management has also agreed to stock it and has given us a donation of 120 kits of naloxone to get the vending machine up and going. So we will use our overdose fatality review team to map out areas where it would be the best fit to put this so it would be accessible where it's needed the most in the community. I've been working with the school nurses to develop a standing order and naloxone administration policy that's being reviewed by the Board of Education now. And our health department strategic goal is to saturate the community with naloxone of a minimum of 1,000 doses annually. So we're really looking to get naloxone out in the community. And naloxone is not only a life-saving medication, but it's a tool for us to be able to educate the community about opioid use disorder and the risks that come with it, and to talk about it and give access to treatment. So our strategic plan update, this is related to the RFQ that we moved to next month's agenda. When we recommend the selection of a contractor, this consulting group would come in and help us finalize this process so that we can have that long-term spending plan to present to you all. The qualitative video project, the next steps in that are to contract with the vendor and get that project moving along so that in theory within the next 2 months we could have that project finished and ready to show you all in the next couple of months. Our Peers Partnering for Excellence group continues to meet, and they are currently in the process of establishing internal bylaws and a governance structure, and they will also assist in the collaborative strategic planning and qualitative video project. And so next we have the overdose fatality review updates. We attended the conference in March, and we have been partnering with Onslow County, who had the original OFR in the state. And since I've been speaking about the overdose fatality review teams at the state level and in the meetings with other opioid project managers, other counties have really been interested in what we're doing and reaching out to see how we're setting this up and how we're getting this off the ground. So I hope that we're starting a momentum of seeing overdose fatality review teams pop up across the state. EMS is a huge partner in this. Tina and Robbie have been working with biospatial technology to be able to map out overdose calls. So we have been collectively looking at the data that we have and trying to create a system of reporting that's accurate and consistent as well as timely. So right now, if we looked at the opioid settlement dashboard, we would have an official count of overdose fatalities from 2022. When we're doing these overdose fatality case reviews, we need information that's a little bit closer to real time than that to be able to make recommendations that impact the health and what's going on here now. So we're looking at pending death certificates and reviewing every death certificate that's coming to the health department and flagging it as a suspected overdose, and that way we can have a head start on looking at the factors that went into this situation as well as real-time counts of suspected overdoses. And what we're seeing over the last 2 months in January and February is we have had 5 suspected overdose fatalities each month, and the majority of these cases are individuals between 20 to 50, and they are working in manufacturing and service type positions. So we're working on some recommendations to be able to do some screening and intervention in those types of employment situations. And that's an example of how that overdose fatality team can work. And then last, our grant-funded projects, our harbor grant, we are in the process of hiring the harbor coordinator. We have a contingent offer right now. Once we get a signed offer letter, we'll have a start date to be able to announce. And I'm really excited to tell you all who it is. It's a very familiar face, but that's the cliffhanger for next meeting. We are also planning our next community forum that's funded through our Dogwood grants, and we're looking at a date of May 29th. Also expecting some exciting news there to be able to announce to you all as we start sending out save the dates. And yesterday officially submitted the SAMHSA Recovery Court Enhancement Grant that would build on our current recovery court as far as funding treatment and wraparound supports for the people that are in recovery court. So we're continuing to pursue opportunities to keep funding coming in for the Recovery Court program. And Jessica Whitesides has been a big help with helping me identify those opportunities and the administrative pieces behind that. And then the BJA COSUP grant, which is currently what funds the Harbor program, that will open up in the next couple of months, so we'll be pursuing that as well. And while I was sitting here, I just got a notification about a medication-assisted treatment, or MAT program, funding opportunity for jail. So we're gonna look into that too. So, do you all have any questions?
Any questions for Katie? A lot of things going on in that arena. Thank you very much for your update today. We look forward to your update at our regular meeting.
Well, thank you.
Without objection, this item will remain as a report item. Item number 8, other discussion items. I remind you to submit any reports you might have for the clerk to include in our agenda packet for our regular meeting. A few other reminders. April 16th, Board of Commissioners regular meeting at 6 o'clock. Continuing to ask for youth groups who might be interested in leading the Pledge of Allegiance at our regular meetings. We'd love to have you do that. Madam Clerk.
Okay.
What happened to it? Thank you. Did you want Ms. Varnado's report moving forward? Because I thought it was our plan just to do them at pre-agendas every couple months.
You are correct. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Just want to make that clarification. Thank you.
Didn't mean to confuse that item. That is correct. Thank you. Continue to note our animal services, spay and neuter your pets, foster or adopt a pet from our animal services group. Continue to remember your trash. As you carry it down the road, please cover it, keep it in your vehicle, and take it to your trash can and not leave it on the sides of the roads. Remind you of our litter pickup process that continues to be moving along. You can go to our website and find a link there to help you with litter pickup in your neighborhood if you see some things we need to be working on. Other action items, none. All right, I think we have made it.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Sorry?
I need to ask you a question.
Okay.
I think each of us as commissioners have been inundated with emails from Catherine Graff, and even as late as of a while ago, do we have an update as to what might be happening? She's made some allegations in her emails, and I just wondered if where we are in that process of speaking with her.
We do have some updates. I think probably best to get those from our county attorney and staff that have been looking at that. JR, best to handle that individually, or what's your thought there?
Either individually or in closed session, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else from anybody else? All right. Thank you very much. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by uplifting hand. All right. Thank you very much.